We're all about turning a crappy situation into something positive.
$250,000 of credit
I
card debt.
still remember the day when no one turned up.
Throw it in the garbage and start from
I
scratch.
could give myself a chance, so I started something.
I mean, I think that counts as from poop to gold.
Welcome back to From Poop to Gold. I'm your co-host, Benton Crane, and today I am joined by the one and only Daymond John.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Daymond, such a pleasure to have you. I'm sure all of our listeners know exactly who you are, but by way of introduction...
Yeah, I'm the black guy on Shark Tank.
And the founder and CEO of FUBU, correct?
That too, yes. Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show today, and I'm excited to dive into this interview and get a little more of your backstory.
Sure.
Now, many people have heard, kind of the high-level rags to riches story.
Yes.
But if you don't mind, let's dive in just a little bit. So, going back to the early days, take us through how FUBU came to be.
Oh, FUBU came to be, I was somebody who really loved this new form of art that it was a communication of kids. It was rap. And it started in the Bronx and made its way into Queens. And rap was just really the voice of the streets, and still is. And it came with a way to walk, talk, dress, and dance, and everything. And I really loved it. And we used to have to, people who really loved the music would have to go and buy products and reinterpret them for the streets. Because, I'll give you an example, if you're breakdancing, your jeans can't be too baggy on the legs because then the cloth would start hitting each other. And
That's right.
When you're doing a windmill, not that I could do a windmill. So you would have to taper the legs, right? Or if you wanted to wear something that was bright, the only way to do that is go and get Gore-Tex lined ski jackets when you just wanted the loud colors. You didn't necessarily need that for walking around the streets of New York. So you'd have to take the linings out and do a lot of other things. But we started to hear that these designers and corporations just didn't want people, whether they're rappers or inner city kids or African Americans or Latinos or minorities, they didn't want anybody buying their clothes. So, how do you feel going to support somebody who just doesn't like you?
They don't even want your business.
They don't want your business. They'd rather not have your business. And that's what I got frustrated. And it was really because a big boot company had made a comment. I think the New York Times, it was the president. He said something like, "We don't sell our boots to drug dealers." And at that time, every kid, part of hip hop was wearing these it was Timberland, and they're not owned by the same company now. So I went home and I created this brand, this idea called For Us By Us. And it was really just to know that if I saw a kid across the street and they were wearing something, I can identify without even knowing the kid that we're into the same thing. And that was really the theory of For Us By Us. And I started out of my home around 1989.
So in some ways, it was just as much about a movement as it was about fashion.
Yeah, it was the same exact, right? It was putting my love of fashion, my love of music together and just putting it all together in one area. And it wasn't because I thought I would have a business. I really didn't think I'd have a business. It was just really because, number one, I wanted to make what I wanted to see the next day on me. Number two is I wanted to get girls. So I wanted to be able to be on the video set and talk to the girls while they were modeling and act like I had a reason to be there.
Right.
Because, of course, I'm dressing the artist, which I wasn't dressing the artist. And then also I wanted to see the artists and be around them. So when the security would come and kick everybody off the set, I'd be the only person with a shirt going, no, I'm here because they wanted me down here because they're going to wear the shirt, even though they didn't know who I was. But it just gave me more validity.
Now, that's got to take a certain level of confidence, right? And before you've made a name for yourself, before you're, that it guy, yeah. How did you muscle up that type of confidence to be able to get on those sets, to get around the models, to get around the artists?
Well, I was doing it for quite some time. I started out. I was fortunate enough that where I was raised at Hollis, Queens, has the highest concentration of music artists in regards to rappers around the world. There's probably about 30 that come from there, from LL to Run DMC to Salt and Pepper to Tribe Called Quest and Lost Boys and 50 Cent and Ja Rule. They all come from that area. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go on the first rap tours, the Raising Hell tour by Run DMC and the Fresh Fest back around '86. So I was already going on those tours.
I see.
Because if you look at it, when Run DMC started putting out their album, they had to hire bodyguards around the way, hire people around the way to be chefs or whatever the case is. So you got to know everybody in the neighborhood. So you got to know where the tour was. So you just showed up, backstage and banged on the door and they let you in. So it didn't take that much confidence to be able to now say I had a shirt there, because I was already doing it when I had nothing.
Right. Now, what kind of reaction did you get from close friends and family members as you came up with these new designs and started pushing them out? Did you get a lot of support, or did you get some skepticism?
Well, the best part about it is my mother taught me how to sew, and my family is just my mother and I at that time. So support from family was great. Support from close friends was decent, and support from the neighborhood was horrible. But that culture is very homophobic, right?
Yep.
So when I said that I was selling clothes, a lot of friends, they thought I was gay, which I have no problem with people who their sexuality. I just happen not to be gay. But I was confident with myself. I didn't care what they thought, right? But really, a lot of people stopped hanging out with me because they were like, that's not cool. At that time, it wasn't cool to make a shirt for somebody.
It's almost ironic that when the culture is being ostracized by the established fashion brands, we don't even want your business. But yet when a brand comes from within, that initially that can be hard to accept because, hey, this isn't coming from a French designer with a big name.
Yeah, it is. It's true. But, listen, thank God, on the flip side, I grew up in a really progressive city. I grew up in New York City, right? So I would go out to clubs and there would be a mixture of all type of people in the clubs. And my favorite artist of all time was Prince. Now, this is a guy wearing ruffles and perming his hair, right? And he's sometimes I think I even saw him with chaps on, right? So I didn't care about that, right? I just cared that, and I think that that's it comes up with another point. I cared that the thing that I was doing was bringing me joy, and I felt that it was bringing other people joy. So the other people that didn't understand it, didn't get it, who cared about them?
Let's take it back even a little bit further, even before you founded FUBU.
Yeah.
Tell us about what you were like as a kid. Were you the entrepreneur is in your running through your veins? You're out selling, selling things door to door, whatever it takes. Was that like you?
All the time. I was always selling stuff. I was always working someplace. I was always doing both. I was always working and then also working on some other level of my own little business, selling stuff. And when I had no money, I would go around the neighborhood and especially go to the bike shops and dig and dumpster dive and look at and try to find all these bike parts. And over in 6 months would go by and I'd build 2 or 3 bikes and I'd sell them, right? And then I'd go and buy more parts and then sell more bikes. And then during the summer, during the fall, I would rake leaves, and then I would shovel snow in the winter, and I would mow lawns. But I ended up having such a great customer base because I had so many customers that I would then, let's say somebody's going to give me $5 to shovel their snow because I had always promised to be there at a certain time. I would then hire a friend in the neighborhood and give him $250, and I would take the $5, and that's when I can expand and do more houses.
Right. So here's a 2-part question for you. For our listeners who have kids, how do you recommend encouraging entrepreneurship in kids? And for our listeners who are kids, how do you recommend feeding that fire, feeding that desire?
Well, I'll be very honest. I have 2 great partners in my life, my first wife and my current wife, and they were the ones who have really been the ones to raise my girls, and I got to give them all the credit for it. But if I would have to think about the Daymond John and how my mother treated me and how I try to treat my little girls is if they want something, I let them find a way to earn it. First, initially, internally doing chores. So making sure that on a Saturday and a Sunday that they knew their responsibility and the buck stopped at them and they would obviously make money from doing that. And then afterwards, as they got older, my girls, once they got about 16 or 17 or not, actually by about 12, I started allowing them to do little jobs outside the neighborhood. If they wanted to babysit or they wanted to create something and try to sell it, I would go with them throughout the process of trying to do that. And I think my mother did the same exact thing to me. I think the beauty of it is you should do that no matter what, whether you have what you think is an entrepreneurial child or not, because, studies have shown when a kid, especially kids who don't have a lot of resources, when they realize that they could take a box of pencils and buy it for $1, and by the time they finish selling it, it's worth $2.50 because they've sold a pencil a piece or a marker a piece. The math starts to work in their head, and they start to look at other options because they start to look at everything as something that they can hopefully monetize.
Right.
In the neighborhoods that I grew up, unfortunately, when we came outside, the only entrepreneurs at that time when I was growing up were drug dealers. That's the only people we saw. Not that good people didn't exist in my neighborhood, but you didn't see what that person did because they got up at 5 a.m, they got their kids ready for school, they got on a train, and then they went to work, right? But the people you would see flashing things around and the people that were out every day were drug dealers. So a lot of my friends died or went to jail because they aspired to be them. However, in the instance I'm giving you, that if you show kids how they can make money legally and creative to get what they want, to do what they want, it's fascinating how fast they grow when you do that, and in the right direction.
It can be a life-changing aha moment for them.
Absolutely, and as they repeat it over the course of time, from 10 to 15 to 20, they just start to really they unwind a lot of things they see, and they say, how can I get this done? I may not need to take out a $200,000 loan. I want to go to college. I'm going to figure it out. They start to find ways to figure it out. And that's just what entrepreneurs do. We just figure it out.
That's right. Now, on your path, all the way to success, every successful person goes through one of those moments where things get really rough and you're just not sure if you're even gonna make it through. Tell us about one of those moments.
There's so many. I have to just think about, when I went to Vegas, and there's the story of I had $300,000 in orders. I come home, I got turned down by 27 banks. I just figured, what did I work for 6 years for when I never realized that? What if I do get the orders that I wanted? Like I hear people all the time saying, I want to be in Walmart. Well, how are you going to fund that?
And then you can't even fulfill it.
Right? So all of a sudden I just realized I lost, those 6 years. But then, mortgaged my home, and now I'm back up. I got $100,000 to make all the goods.
But your neck is on the line personally with your house, right?
Right. But no problem, because I'm too stupid to realize that. I have $100,000, more money than I ever thought about in my life. Then all of a sudden, I only have $500 left. I'm 3 months later on the mortgage. I've only delivered half the goods because I didn't have financial intelligence, and I didn't realize that I was paying for raw goods 90 days ahead of time. I was paying for a salary and staff, and my receivables I wasn't getting for 60 days. So now all of a sudden I'm about to lose the house and everything else.
Just because of a cash crunch.
Yeah, because I didn't understand what I was doing. Then I do get a deal with a distribution company through Samsung, and we start to grow, and and things start to work out. But all of a sudden, how do I handle a staff of 300 people? When we know how fickle fashion is, how are we going to make sure that we stay consistent when a hot fashion brand lasts 5 to 7 years and then they're gone? There's the very few, the unicorns like Nike and Adidas and Louis Vuitton, very, very few. There's 1% of 1% that last. So, those things always have happened. And then FUBU went down, and I bought 3 or 4 other brands, and those failed. And I was like, I'm burning all my capital. I'm spending good money after bad money. And then all of a sudden, I buy another brand, Coogee. Then that worked. So his life has been a huge roller coaster, and I think most entrepreneurs go through that.
Now, do you feel like the roller coaster continues? The public looks at you and sees nothing but success, right? Does the roller coaster continue, or do you reach a point where you're like, you know what? I'm there. I've made it. I'm safe. I'm sound.
The roller coaster does continue to some extent if you are an A-type personality and you keep posting up new goals to hit. And the roller coaster can continue with your personal life, with your health, with your family, with your faith, with your business. Today, let's look at let's give you an example of one of my heroes is Mark Cuban. But if you really think about it, he had one huge hit, right? And Mark, I'm sure, has turned down the Facebooks and the Amazons and the Ubers of the world, right? So his roller coaster may be, listen, I got $9 or $10 billion, but I love tech so much, I want to be one of the big tech players. He may not. I have no idea what his roller coaster is. He may say, no, I want to be home with my kids all the time because this is an important time. So a roller coaster is, it's really to each individual where they're setting their goals.
Now, for our listeners, I think people who aspire to go on Shark Tank in many cases are probably very similar to the people who aspire to come get a Harmon Brothers campaign, right? Mm-hmm. What piece of advice would you give to those people who are, they're the up and coming, they're the next entrepreneur, they have a great idea. What piece of advice would you have for them to be able to come into the Shark Tank and be successful?
Know that your success is inevitable because you're never going to stop trying. Take affordable steps and make sure you don't bank everything on the opportunity. Know that a shark is not a crutch. A shark is somebody happens to be around, and whether you get a deal or not, tell us the story. Like the train is leaving the station, and if we want to get on, it's up to us. But this train is leaving the station. You want us to be part of the party. You want us to feel like we're missing out, not because we're missing out necessarily on dollars, but we're missing out on this great person you are, this problem solver you are, the fact that you're solving a pain in the market. You're gonna have fun, and you know what? You may be giving back to people, and we may make some money at the same time, and just be somebody that I want to be around, and I want to invest in because whether this business works out or not, we're gonna do something else together.
That's right.
Be that person.
Yeah, and I know your show. Obviously, I've never been on your show, but your show has had an enormous impact on our company because 3 of our clients came through Shark Tank. Squatty Potty was a Shark Tank company.
Yeah.
They did a deal
I don't think it
with
had
Lori.
enormous impact on your company. I think your company had enormous impact on them.
Well, I think it was mutual, right? And
No, there's products everywhere. But how many people have carved out a really good way to present it in an authentic way, fun-loving way? So I think that you've done good for them.
Well, thank you. Just to wrap this up, I want to be super respectful of your time. I really appreciate you coming on. Do you have any up-and-coming projects or anything coming down the pipeline that you'd be open to giving a sneak peek to our audience?
Unfortunately, I can't, only because they'll air.
Got it.
I do have projects myself personally. I have, we have something called Daymond on Demand. Oh, you know what? I don't want you to fall out of your chair. I have an album. I'm not rapping, singing, or dancing. You don't even want to hear me hum. So don't think that I'm trying to insult the artists out there. But what has happened is, and actually our buddy Gary Vee was here. I was going to get him on the album. It's my speeches that there's music embedded underneath so people can get ready to go to work. Or they're on the train or they're getting ready for a meeting and stuff like that. It's just my speeches. And it's been getting a lot of really great reviews. It's called Visualize. And
where can people check it out?
On all streaming platforms.
Okay.
On Apple, on Spotify, on Pandora, and the reason I came up with it. I remember I was driving and I was listening to Martin Luther King. I Had a Dream, and it was one of the days, MLK Day, and some DJ put a beat to it, and I said, I want to work out to this.
And it gave it rhythm.
I want to work. I would love to work out to this, and I realized if you hear one of my speeches. All right, you heard it once. You don't need to hear it again. But if there's someone I got with some really young producers and they put some rhythm to it and they got some great people to sing hooks around it, and it's fun. I'm having a really good time with it. But I want, music out today is a lot of time the artist is talking about themselves, and I want people to take these speeches of mine and use it for themselves. I mean, so my speech is about visual. The album's called Visualize, and so the speech is about setting goals. It's about visualization. It's about you'll deal with haters in your life. It's about dreaming, it's about all those things.
I love it. That's such a good idea. Where our specialty has been in these long format ads. Most of our ads are anywhere from 2 to 5 minutes long, which in the advertising world,
that's forever.
That's insane.
It's forever, yeah.
Nobody sticks around for that long.
Yeah,
And we found that rhythm is our most effective tool for keeping people engaged, because when the rhythm is there, people forget about time.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's 2 minutes, doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes. If the rhythm is there, they stay engaged.
You know who also does that? Mark Burnett, ABC and Sony. When you see Shark Tank, you're really looking at business theater, and there's a rhythm that they play with it. Kind of like you hear the tone coming, and right before you know Mr. Wonderful's about to hammer somebody, they cut the commercial. You know what I mean? Then you go, oh God! God, so it is. And I think that a lot of people can learn from this, from our conversation, because I'm just realizing what you're saying now is that when people are doing stuff, is there a rhythm in their communication? How does it flow? And then my other project is Daymond On Demand. I have something called Daymond On Demand, which is 8 hours of digital curriculum for people to start businesses. So it's 8 hours of that. It's called Daymond On Demand.
Awesome.
So they
Perfect.
can avoid some of those speed bumps that we've had when we were coming up, because you didn't find all this stuff about entrepreneurship in one place.
That's right.
Very hard.
That's right. Where's the best place for our listeners to keep up with what you've got going on?
Yeah, you can check me out on all social media platforms. I'm The Shark Daymond, but my name is spelled like Raymond, but with a D.
Perfect. Daymond, got a little gift for you here.
All right. Now you're talking.
This is a copy of our book and some
to gold.
Yep,
Love it.
Some little goodies from our clients as well. So,
all right.
Once again, thank you so much for your time. It's a pleasure to get to know you better and to hear a little bit more of your background.
Thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.